The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Creating a culture of love.
And the first part is you got to get caught in the story. But to get caught in the story,
You got to believe in it so much. So much, because no one's going to believe in it until you believe in it.
you're not rewarded for being this perfect thing, right? You're rewarded in society for being different. You're not feeling 100%, but you still show up and you do it.
Bimma Williams.
What's going on?
Thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here, my friend.
Today feels like you didn't even leave home, right?
Yo, I looked out that hotel window and I was like, it's raining and it's pouring out and it's like 50 degrees. And I was like, I guess I'm in Portland.
Yeah. It's like,
It was a little trippy.
Sunny Southern California.
I mean, the song says it never rains in Southern California, but it's raining
Unless
right
the
now.
Pineapple Express joins us. That's what they're calling it. It's like some tropical river.
Tropical, yeah. I'm ready for y'all to get back to y'all.
I agree.
You know, I need like 80 degrees,
agree.
sunshine on my face.
I want to give it to you. I would love to give it to you. But for now, this is what we got. We'll keep you warm and toasty in the studio.
Facts.
So you are the title of your favorite creative's favorite freelance interviewer. And I think that's fun. And I've seen your stuff, and we met at Complex Con. We had a lot of mutual friends. Like, we're here kind of like we've been hanging out forever.
Yeah.
And I've seen, Tyler, the creator, and you get to interview some really, really cool people. Yeah. And a lot of your work and your passion is around the marketing plan behind drops. Mm-hmm. When we're talking about shoe drops or hat drops or collabs or branding and things like that. So I would really like to dive into a little bit of like, how did you get there?
Yeah.
But let's just start talking about, this is February. This is the month of love.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk about how love is being commoditized in these spaces, and what can we do to really bring the truth about love.
Yeah.
And we'll dive into that.
We'll dive into it.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, like I'm a storyteller. I love stories. I've always loved stories. And I didn't really have the language of creative when I was coming up. Like that just wasn't the language. My folks worked at chemical plants, and they had their world, and I was just this kid that was curious about stuff, but I just always leaned into stories.
Yeah.
And over time, I found that like my connection to stories where I felt like I could be of service happened to be in marketing and advertising. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up, getting gigs in the sneaker industry from Saucony to Adidas and Nike. Mm-hmm. And so the marketing thing for me is just like, it's obsessive at this point, but specifically now it's more so for like creatives like us, because I recognize so many of us, we have like these dope ideas and we have these incredible talents, but we don't necessarily know how to actually successfully communicate them to other people, right? And we're just so passionate. We want to tell all of the different details about it, but the important thing is figuring out how to succinctly communicate that to someone else. And so when I interview people, especially like some of these other folks, like Tyler creators or the J Balvin's or the Coil Rays, these people are very successful, and yes, they do have teams, but they also are very acutely aware of how to market and promote themselves. And it's like, to me, I think that's one of those things that'll take you from like, even people that are really great at what they do, but it also then starts to separate them the more they can start to figure out these little things that can separate them. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's the difference with, that's communication, that's storytelling, that's passion. But going back to, that's also how we escaped.
Yeah.
We escape in storytelling. So when we realized that, we were escaping all this time, and now we're bigger.
Yeah.
And now we're like, now we're allowing the world to escape through our storytelling and our vision and our imagination. I think it's connecting that on. How do we continue to land that?
Man, one of the things I try to like expose or speak a lot about, it's kind of one of those first things, like, because you talk about the escape aspect and getting caught in the story. And the first part is you got to get caught in the story, but to get caught in the story, you got to be clear on what the story actually is.
Yeah.
Right? Like it can't be like 5 stories at once, right? We can't say like, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm doing this and all these things. And the thing that I, even personally, and the only reason I can speak towards is because I went through these challenges myself was observing the other creatives ahead of me, right? The generation before me.
Yeah.
And you see where they are now. And the trouble is like, well, that's where they are now.
Yeah.
That's not where they started.
No.
You know what I mean? And so when we start, we got to think about, okay, so what is the thing that I like, what's my superpower? What is the thing that like I'm here to do and be the greatest at and be of service in? And how can I build from there? And so it's a controversial take. My take is controversial because so many creatives want to identify as multi-hyphenate, and I come in and if anyone asks me, I get a bunch of DMs on Instagram and stuff, and I see bios that say that, and I'm like, are you just starting out? Say yes. I was like, then don't say you're multi-hyphenate. Say, because it's going to confuse people. They won't know. They won't know. And now it's getting harder. It's much harder now.
Oh, yeah.
It's so many folks now, which is like, part of it's like, oh, we want more of us in the door. And I think that's incredible. With more of us in the door, it requires all of us to be very clear on what our spot is so that as the story goes, people can follow along in the story. And then you can start to add these different chapters. But you can't start with like a 10 chapter story.
And the thing, like, you're so correct in all of that. But the thing is, like, if you have a 10 chapter story, but is all the theme of those chapters the same? And then it's actually, let's call it the holding company and the ideas in between. So like, that's your funnel.
That's your funnel.
If we want to talk about funnels. But the multi-hyphenate thing, right? Yeah. I started as a street artist, a mural. So I'm like, oh, I do street art. Yep. Then I started doing canvases. So is that a fine artist? Is that an artist? Like what kind of? And then I started doing clothing. So now I'm a clothing designer. Then I write poetry. So I'm also a poet, author. Yeah. And I would write all that, or my PR team would be like, you need this all in your bio. And I'm just like, it sounds exhausting. Yeah. And this year, because even I confused myself, right? I wrote a song, as I was sharing earlier, for this campaign we did. Yeah. And I'm not a musician. I will clearly say I am not a musician, but that doesn't mean I can't create music with people. Yes. But do I now say I'm a musician? So I started seeing all this, and we go back to Rick Ruben, and he's just like, just be. So that's it. It's like, I'm an artist, period. And then we're not even confusing ourselves of like, well, am I a graphic artist? Am I a graphic designer? Am I a product designer? Am I a street artist? Am I like, it doesn't matter. Just be an artist. And I also had this other conversation where I think creative even gets a little confusing. Gets a little murky. Because now everyone's a content creator. Yeah. And they're like, wait, so do I have to like do this? Do I have to like, and literally, I made I made a post about this recently because I'm sure it's similar to you. You have folks that are in your corner and they want you to do really well. And so they have suggestions for you all the time. And I'm like, that's great. Like, please pour into me. I'm receptive to those things. But I'll be honest, there were some things that I was not receptive to. And those things were like, oh, you need to, hop on these trends, or you need to do like a dance video, or you need to do, the reenactment videos. Yeah. And I was like, screens. And I'm like, I think that stuff is really dope. And I think for the creators and the creatives that do that, I think that's their lane. I was like, but for me, in the lane that I want to be in, is like, I really love the ability to, can I stand on my skill set? Right. And for me, my skill set is definitely my knowledge and my experience when it comes to my background as a freelance creator, but also my background as a marketer, and me trying to pull those worlds together to provide insight from my peers in the next generation. And so to me, I'm like, I don't understand how me dancing is going to feel real to me. Right. Yeah. And who I think of as a creative and an artist is I think of Jay-Z. And I think of like, he never did a lot of the stuff that people would try to push on that felt inauthentic, right? He would always stand on his story. Yeah. And so I think he had a song that he put out, Sunshine, and it was like him in shiny suits, and it kind of felt like what was happening with with and Mace, and he was like, this is not me. Like I can't do this. I can't fake this.
And I actually had I've been doing this for a minute, and I had a viral video. My viral video was just me talking. And I was like, see, this is my point. Like, sometimes it's just time and place, right? Subject matter, keep chiseling, right? Because, and also the virality doesn't matter. Like, these are like vanity metrics in my opinion.
Well,
like,
it's ego. It makes us feel worthy and belonging and like it's landing, because we're also questioning, am I good enough? Is it out there? Am I not pouring enough into this?
Yeah.
And comparing it against everything else.
Oh my God. All the time. Constantly, because that's what that environment shapes. It breeds that. That's why you see the numbers. That's why you see the likes. That's why you see the comments, the shares. Like, a part of it is, if you're a savvy marketer, so you know what's going on. But the other part of that is like, oh, I'm not doing good enough, or I'm not doing this enough. And I had interviewed Ravy B, and she had gone on tour, and she was the photographer for Jay-Z and Beyonce's On the Run 2 tour, and then photographer for Adele. And she had opened up, and it was surprising to me because she had shared that she's like, and I came back, and like a week had gone by, and like, I'm sitting here feeling like I hadn't done anything, looking at Instagram, and it's so crazy. It's like, no, like, we don't have to, like, our worth isn't based on what we've done in the last 5 minutes. But it's crazy. It's a huge struggle for so many of us. And I think we all have to get to a place where we got to take a step back and recognize, like, if you got one person that is inspired by the work that you do, that's a lot. When people see they have, like, I don't know, 10 people viewing their things, or 100 people viewing their things. And I know this is not a new take, but 100 people in a room is a lot of people. 100 clients is a lot of clients.
Facts.
You know what I mean? So to have a video with, to desire a video or a piece of content with hundreds of thousands of views and then have no clients from it, what's the point? So we really got to get to a place of like, what's real and what's just social media.
No, totally. But to lean into that a little bit more, because I live in both. Like, I want the millions, and I get that even one matters. I'm like, if that one was so affected that they changed their life and signed up for this Live Through Love movement, that they enrolled one other person, and so on and so forth, the things that you don't see. You're like, wow, maybe that 100 turned into a real 100 people, and they're out there evangelizing you, and you'll never know. And all of a sudden, maybe it got to someone, and they call you up, and boom. So that's, I think, when we put the weight on diminishing any of it, I think that's where it becomes a problem.
You got to have faith, and I don't say that lightly, because, you can't. I literally was talking to someone about this today, and they were like, oh, well, it's not on that level. I was like, what level? What levels are we talking about?
Define the level.
I'm like, did you just do an interview with a platform? And they were like, yes. And I was like, be appreciative of where you're at right now. How can you ask for more when you don't appreciate where you're at now? Why should you gain anything else? Because then you're going to spend the whole time not appreciating this thing. And this is, when I think about interviewing, and what we're doing right now feels meta. I'm like, oh, I'm on the other side of the chair. I really think about how we have to be appreciative of the process. And it's like, think of your favorite, sports team, right? Maybe Rams. Like, it's probably best leading up to the games, right? Or I think about going on vacation. My wife and I have been wanting to go to Italy for 11, 12 years. We went last September. And a part of me was like, it was the best trip ever. But also the other part of me was like, damn, the lead up might have been like better, because you're just anticipating going, and now it's gone. And now all you got is photos and memories. So I just try to remember, like, this moment is the most important moment. I think that's something I would pour into a lot of creatives, is like, this moment is the most important moment. This is the moment that you should actually be in,
I agree with that. And like, I love the lead up, Because by the time you drop the thing, every little thing, you put your heart, soul, tears, everything into it. And once you drop it, it's like, cool, it's out there. You might be wanting to track the vanity metrics, of course. But then you're like, ooh, what's next?
What's next?
What's next? Like, I'm always looking for what's next.
Yeah.
And I forget to acknowledge, like, well, look how far I've come.
Ooh.
And then sometimes I'm like, wow, it's only been 5 years.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? What you just said, it's only been 5 years. How do you do that though? Like, how do you get to be present and mindful around what you've actually been doing? How do you remind yourself?
Part of it is trying to slow down time. I'll tell you this. It helps that I have a child now, because a child is such a barometer to time. He's turning 3. 3 years have gone by since his birth.
Yeah.
Up to that point, I painted my first mural 2014. I didn't go full time till 2018. That's 4 years.
Yeah.
2018 to his birth in 2021. Another 4 years. Like what? That to me didn't even look like that. What was that?
Yeah.
So I think it helps that I have a child, but I think it's realizing the moments. And when I get down and depressed on myself and judging myself and you're not X, Y, and Z for whatever reason. Not that I want to. I'm clear in my lane and who I am, but I do aspire to get to a level of other people in my craft on my voice. Not like, well, I'm not him. No, I'm not. But I can be up to the equal. And realizing that, it took them 20 years. So doing that math, I think, grounds me right back to like, it's only been 5. Keep going. Yeah. Keep going. Yeah. But then at the same time, it's like, damn, it's been 5 years.
It's been 5 years. It's funny you say that. Again, I'm not better. I'm not perfect. I'm not any of these things. I have the same similar challenges and literally I've only been full time, right? I left my full-time gig in July 2023. And July 2020, right? And so we're now in 2024, and it's been that amount of time. But I think a part of it is like, I always say, I'm like, a part of it is that, but the other part of it is you need to have a bit of the impatience. You need to have a bit of the edge to push.
I call it like strategic urgency. You got to live urgently, but with the long game. Like sometimes I think I play the long game so far, I kind of hurt myself because I'm like really counting on the long game. But I don't know if that can be negative. But I agree with what you're saying. We got to live urgently. Life is a marathon at a sprinter's pace. We don't know when we're going to end.
No, you got to be running like Kipchoge, okay? Yeah. Your miles need to be about 5-minute miles for 26 miles.
Yeah.
Right? Because things change quickly. And so there's a part of it where I think you have to be patient in the arrival or in the journey, but you also have to be smart about showing up in the moments that you need to be in and not dragging your ass. Like those moments, they do come and go. Other moments come by, but there's certain moments that you might be waiting for, and if you don't step into it, the next moment might not come for a while, right? Like that's how things evolve in society, right? Like things come, there's big movements that come. And you got to decide if you want to be a part of that, whether you're ready or not. 9 times out of 10, you're not ready. We're never ready. You shouldn't be ready. If you're ready, you're too late, in my opinion.
I agree.
Like, sure, you're 60% there. Go. Go learn.
That's the thing. And it's never the right time until you make it the right time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you could look back at the pandemic. It's a very special period of life. And some people crushed it.
Yeah.
And some people did nothing, and it's fine. This isn't about judgment in that. No. But the thought is like where I feel bad sometimes when I hear folks say it's like, well, I missed that. I regret it. I didn't do it when it counted. I missed the housing boom. I missed this. I'm like, okay, but you couldn't predict that. It's just being ready to move, which is what we're saying. Just always be willing to move, keep forward momentum to jump on something. If you even thought you were ready and it was going to happen, you already missed it.
You already missed it. No, and it's a part of being in the process, right? So, like, here's an example. So, we had started an independent podcast 2019. Clearly, that's before podcasts had, its moment. But podcast has been around for, such a long time before that, right?
2012, 20 something.
It's been around. And a part of this was like, it wasn't a foresight of like, oh, there's going to be this big thing that comes. No, it was just like, oh, I thought this would be a really dope way to share insight and information. But because we were doing our thing, a moment came and we just happened to be positioned in that moment to be able to take advantage of a swell of interest, right? And so that's why I try to tell people is like, you can't hoard your ideas and think that someone's going to read your mind and that they know that you are this remarkable creative and that you're perfectly suited for this thing that they want to do. It doesn't work that way. You got to build trust.
Yeah.
And a lot of times building trust with people, you might be building trust with someone you hadn't even met yet. And they're seeing you putting in the work. They're seeing other people support and co-sign you. And then they start putting you, brands, you know how brands work. Then they start putting you in decks, right? Then they start putting you in mood boards and they're working on stuff. And then out of the blue, you get a DM, or if you got management, they get a hit up, or you might get a message on LinkedIn, or we might be at Complex Con. We might meet and we might say, hey, what if we come sit and do this podcast together? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be in the moment. That's why I say, if you're not in the moment, who's going to know? We don't know. We only know what we experience. And then we act on that.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I hear another thing in there. And the thought is, because sometimes you want to keep your idea to yourself, this to yourself. No idea is an original idea. That means someone else will beat you to it, but not because they stole it. Nope. They don't know you. They just, we're all humans. We're still connected to something, right? So get it out there and put it out there and move. So that's also part of that.
And it's easier said than done.
Of course.
I've had for me personally, it came from places of insecurity. Like, is this good enough? Am I good enough? Do people want this from me? You know what I mean? And even me getting to know me as a creative. What's my voice? What's authentic? Does it just sound like I'm repeating something that someone else said, or is this actually based in my experience and what I know to be true that I can confidently share? And, a lot of times I try to just be like, well, start where you can start, right? So you may not be at a place where you're like, okay, I want to share my ideas with the world. Okay, that's fine. Is there like 4 or 5 people you trust that you could share these ideas with? And not just ideas. I don't mean like, if you're a graffiti artist, like to share your ideas as a graffiti artist means you got to put that shit on canvas. Yep. You gotta put it down. If you're, a media personality, on air personality, and you wanna be interviewing people, maybe your start is, I don't know, doing something with your phone. There's cats all over the place with, Mr. Beast is a billionaire from starting like this, right? And so we have to get to a place where we'll just start where you're comfortable. And the more you do it, the more confident you get, because those reps, you get confident with those reps and so much changes. I mean, for you, like when you think about your art, like when did you feel like, you said it was 2014 and then like 2018, you went full time. What was that first journey? Were you like outside, like sharing it, or were you a little protective?
So I've been an artist my whole life.
Okay.
First generation immigrant son, go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, do that. So I played 3 sports, went to college. I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon.
Ooh, you were going to be an orthopedic surgeon?
That is my BS in exercise science, biomechanics, AS in biology. Yeah, I have all that knowledge in me. Obviously, I don't really use it now. I still love the human body and all that. I still geek out over it. But art was never pushed, and we didn't have the creator economy and all these things that you see now.
Right.
But long story short, I ended up in real estate, got really wealthy, lost it all. But when I was in my early 20s, money was about success. I am successful. I am enough. I am worthy of love and all these things because I drive an Escalade with 26-inch rims, because I have an iced out watch.
With low profile tires. I got the bezel, big bezel.
Blacked out. You name it. People thought like, who are you, a rap? I'm like, and I thought that was the jam. But then you lose it all. I'm like, whoa, there's got to be something like, okay, this was the first awakening. Yeah. Then I end up in finance.
Okay.
Start crushing it again. Rookie of the year, leaders conference, this and that. Wow. 5 years into it, I'm like, no, I'm about to repeat this same cycle. Money wasn't the metric that I waited at before. Like I started finding purpose within myself and all that. We need money. I like nice things, but that's not what defines my self-worth, my value, or who I am.
Yeah.
And it took those lessons to learn that. So I was really depressed. And I'm born, raised here, no baggage, no kids, no wife, no nothing. Why am I depressed? Who am I to be depressed?
Yeah.
Like, I'm the luckiest guy in the world to be born here. Like, come on. And when I did some work, that led to the first mural. And that mural asked the question, who will you be? That's what I painted on the left of the wall.
Wow.
In red script. And on the right-hand side, huge, I put leader, responsible, worthy, grateful, love, joy, all those ways of being. There was about 80 words on that wall in all over different typography, just everywhere. And my silhouette in there. Like it comes from in and out.
Yeah.
So that was the first mural. A lot of impactful stories that came about that. Then the next one was you are beautiful. Anything can happen. Anything can be. And more murals like gratitude and be humble and this. And I just kept painting and painting and painting. And realizing that the impact of the streets are my diary. So those are my personal entries. I was really talking to myself because I also learned that the struggles we have with ourselves, we're mirrors to someone else.
Yes.
Not to everyone, but it's going to land with you and not you. With you and not,
And you can't hit everybody.
And you don't know.
You're not going to impact everybody, and you're not meant to.
Yeah.
You're meant to impact your point, the folks that you're meant to resonate with. And a lot of times we're going to resonate with the folks that are our former selves, where we used to be.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes where we used to be yesterday.
That's why your story matters. I tell people, like, you don't have to be the president. You could just be you right here, and that one person is affected. So 2014 to 2018, was still in finance. How do I figure this thing out? How do I make money as an artist? How do I want a family at one point. I want all these things, but I can't stay in finance or I'm going to be miserable, and I'll start the family, but I'll probably end up divorced and all kinds of problems with my kids. I started saying, like, if I stay down that path. So that pain wasn't worth the pain of the unknown.
Yeah.
But I got a couple paid mural gigs. One was with GT's Kombucha. I painted 20-foot high realistic GT's bottles in their warehouses.
20 foot?
Yeah. They were huge.
Jeez.
And you know that bottle. That bottle is very remarkable.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
20 feet tall. We paid 4 of them on their warehouse. I'm like, I can make money doing this. But I just kept painting all my style at all this point was like $200 here or free or $300. Like, can you cover my paint? I'm going to. And eventually I just kept putting it out there. And now people just ask me for my voice, my thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't invent love. I think when people start unpacking and really digging into it, it's like, oh, you're creating a culture of love. You're creating a lifestyle of love. Love and the street art is just my first medium to grab your eyes and your attention. If we talk about marketing, it's like, hey, color, shiny object, message. Ooh, what's it make me feel inside? And then keep going from that point.
From there, you're bringing them into the world, right? The first part is just the invite, right? But then you got other stuff that you can start to layer in there. But it comes from, I love how you just described creating demand. Because that's essentially what you did. You were like, yo, I've got to get this out here, and I'm doing it with different partners. And sometimes it was just like, can you cover my paint, right? And I think especially so many of us can sometimes get caught up in just the tactile monetary component of it. And don't get me wrong, I know people got bills to pay. I know it's not easy out here, especially right now. But you have to also understand time and place, where you are, and like, is there more of a benefit, right? Like, would it be helpful for me to have more examples of my work out there with clients, not just independent, but also with clients, right? Get more of those examples. Okay, so if people are checking for that now, right? They're checking for you now, right? Okay, so does that mean my price starts to change because I have more demand? Well, of course it does. Because now it's not you trying to chase them. Now they're actually coming to you. And if your time is limited, then you're like, okay, so with the time I do have, well, I need this to feel good about it. You know what I mean? And so like that part, but you got to start with putting the demand out there. You know, if you're a musician, you got to put out songs to get attention. You may have to do a couple collabs to get the attention. You know, we see people grind for years before to build brands. To build a brand is a lot of work. It's not a put one piece out there and think you made it. It's never that. It's like, if I did one interview, you think I'd still be here? No one would care. They'd be like, "Oh, cool, that was the one interview wonder."
Yeah, yeah, and it doesn't pay like a one-hit wonder.
It doesn't pay like a one-hit wonder. I'm gonna tell you that now. Yep. I wish it did.
That would be nice.
Oh,
but
man.
no, and part of that is, and I'm going to add this, like, let's dive into the art of being this creative and being an artist, whatever you want to define it. You've got to believe in it so much, because no one's going to believe in it until you believe in it. And I think there's a huge gap in folks trying to create things or quick flip companies, whatever you name it, because they want to make the dollar, and people could tell. But like, if I didn't believe in the power of what I'm doing, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have lasted. Like the downs are the downs. Like, it is hard work. And if you don't believe in what you're putting out there, then it's not going to turn into something. And you can't demand the value behind it.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel that the modern era has misled a lot of people into thinking that things happen quickly and they happen easily. But it requires you to dedicate like your life like to a specific lane, and a lot of times that lane has already been presented to us, but we can be very distracted and we don't realize that like that's our calling. That's how we're supposed to show up and serve our people. And when you don't remember that, or you don't understand that, right? Like, you have this illusion that, oh, well, I put out this thing and it didn't work. No one said because you tried that you're supposed to be successful on the first round, or because you tried, you're then supposed to become a millionaire. Or you tried and people were supposed to like ground it and really be into it. You know, it has to be coming from a true, authentic place. And it has to, in my opinion, I think the best things start in the shadows. The best things start when no one's watching. I think about boxers, and when they're preparing, they ain't out here, you know, they're like really in the gym multiple times. You know, we think about R.I.P. Kobe. You know, and they say Kobe's in the gym at like hours before a game putting up shots, hours after a game putting up shots.
First
the dream
in,
team
last out.
Yes. And you're like, wow, is that type of dedication. It's like, it's not just a dedication. He loved basketball. He loved the game of basketball. And you have to love what you do before anyone else is going to show up, because they're not going to show up. They'll show up much later. And, you know, for me, in my personal experience, like when I was starting out interviewing, I started out creating my own podcast, and in Portland, you know, it rains. And so it was the fall of 2019. And it was also a period where I was in between work. So I was leaving one gig, heading to another gig. There was this thing called a non-compete, so I couldn't go to the other gig. And everybody had an opinion on what I should be doing with that time. Folks were like, oh, you should travel and go do this thing. And I was like, I want to do that. And I wanted to pour into myself. I wanted to learn. I wanted to grow. And so as a part of that journey, the thing that I got interested in was, okay, how can I share some of the information I've been able to acquire over my career and my network? And how can I pour that back into these kids that want to get into this industry that I love, you know, sneakers and streetwear and culture and art? And that came with a sacrifice, and it came when no one was watching. And that meant I would spend like Saturdays, 8 hours of a Saturday, interviewing people. No one was there watching. A couple of people were listening, right? But no one was like, it wasn't like today where, like, you know, I'm a part of the CultureCon creative class. That wasn't what was happening. But the only way I could get to today is by being in love with actually getting to know someone's story and those insights, and doing it when no one was paying attention. I think the beauty of doing stuff when no one's paying attention and no one has input and no one has an investment in you, meaning making money from you, what you do, is that there's no one telling you what to do.
There's freedom in that.
There's a freedom in it, right? And if you have the blessing of being in alignment with what you're passionate about and what in the way that you can serve others, you will have to continue to fight for maintaining that freedom that you had when you began and maintaining the preciousness of what it is. Because then once people realize they can make money from it, they're coming. You know what I mean? And they're going to want to throw their vision, project their vision on, oh, you should do it like this, or you should ask the question like this, or why aren't you doing that?
This is how it's supposed to be done.
This is how it's supposed to be done. Yeah. And what we have to learn when we find our voice is to realize none of that matters. The only thing that matters is what you decide to do. And the community. I try not to say audience or followers, because you're serving a community, right? And when they show up for what you're serving to them, that's all that matters. Yeah. And that's what folks appreciate. So you don't need to be like me. They don't need to be like you. They don't need to be like, whomever they might have, Banksy, or they don't need to be like Joe Budden or whomever they look at from a podcast standpoint in that regard. We just need to be like us, because when we're like us, that's what carves out the lane. Yeah. You can't replace being yourself.
Yeah. And no one could be as good as you other than you. We try to be everyone else. Just realize you are the best possible professional you can be if you allow it to happen. Yeah. But when we're trying to be all these other things, you're only half-assing it. And maybe a B at best.
Yeah, you can't, because then you're trying to I feel like you're trying to become something you're not, right? And, I've had to go through an unlearning since leaving the corporate environment, because I felt like it stripped me of so much of my own, like, DNA and just my natural things, my way of speaking or my way of showing up. It's the reason why I wear a uniform, reason why I have the hair that I have now is because for so long, this corporate lane was like, oh, well, you're not really going to get promoted if you dress like that. Or, leadership might look at you different if your hair is like that or your facial hair is like that. Or
I know that.
The
beard, the hair was super short.
I was a 1 centimeter cut, one clip. And presenting a certain way, using like yeah or y'all, or I'm from the South. We say y'all. What you want? We say South. Yeah. And so, I'm even getting to a place where I have to, I'm still going through the unlearning of I could just be who I am and just say what I feel, because, my community is going to connect to them. And that's the only thing that matters here. Right. And in business, we know that if I wanted corporate clients, they're not coming because I'm speaking corporate. They're coming because they want a piece of what I built.
Exactly.
Right. And so you can't get none of that if you over here trying to be something that you're not. We see this time and time again when people create these facades, and it's not, you can't maintain it because it wasn't ever you.
Yeah. No, and with that, I had Tabitha Brown on the show, and I love Tab. Yeah. She's fire. She came in, we just, woo! But she talked about code switching, and she's like, for the longest time, I was X. And until I was me, my North Carolina accent, the whole shebang, let the hair out. She's like, then I thrived, and it was authentic, and it was this. So it's like, that is factual. And we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but even The Rock was The Rock. Then Holly was like, you need to get thin, drop weight like this. And he did a couple movies like that. Yeah. And then he said, you know what? I'm going to get as big as I can. And I'm just going to be as The Rock as I can. And he became this mega global powerhouse.
Yes.
Again, being you.
Yes. You're not rewarded for being this perfect thing, right? You're rewarded in society for being different, right? We don't need more of the same things. And that's the thing that frustrates me today, is because we have these algorithms and people are getting fed this information. And so they believe the only way to be is like, I gotta do what's in the algorithm. And I'm like, maybe I'm one of those people where I can't subscribe to it. Like I just can't be beat into that. Like I have to beat to my own drum. I'm sure this feels the same for you.
Even with the art world, like if people ask me, So where'd you get your MFA? I mean, I was almost going to be a doctor. I didn't study art. Or I don't do it your way. I did it my way, which also irks people in certain waters. You're like, how are you like starting to get to levels doing it your way? Like, we're the ones that anoint you, right? We're the ones that are, there's gatekeepers
We're the gatekeepers.
everywhere. We just become our own. We're the gate unlockers.
I'm gonna unlock my own gate. I'm gonna build. I don't need you to actually. I'm gonna build it. I'm gonna build my tunnel. I'm gonna go around.
And it opens up just when I walk up to it with sensors. Like I don't even need a key. Yeah,
but it's
but
true.
owning that, right?
Yeah.
But again, that does take urgency to act, but it takes patience and vision to realize it's going to take time.
It doesn't happen overnight. And there's a friend of mine who said, it wasn't built overnight, it was built over nights. And I was like, yeah, it's that those times where you don't know what's going to happen, but you still show up and do it.
Yeah.
You're not feeling 100%, but you still show up and you do it, right? Or something happened that morning and I'm sure you were pissed the hell off, but you still showed up and you did it. And those are the things that start to separate people. It starts to get you closer to where perhaps you might want to be. Because if you let all that stuff hold you back, you'll just be held back, genuinely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and sometimes people are like, how are you where? I'm like, I show up every day. But there's another thing we've kept saying. You say, you're trying. Just realize when you are trying, you're actually doing.
Yes.
So you're in it.
Yes.
Sometimes people are like, oh, I'm just trying to get there. I'm like, you're doing it. You're getting there. It might be 1 inch further than where you started, but you're actually doing it. Let's start reframing like what our words are being used and how we're using them to move us forward or keep us behind.
Sometimes I think we need to visualize it for ourselves, outside of a digital space, right? Like sometimes it's like, I don't know, put it up in your wall and like keep a catalog of like, well, when I started this journey, where was I? And now in this journey, did I make progress? Okay, then you're in it.
Yeah.
Right? If you didn't make progress, okay, then you haven't been doing anything.
Yeah.
So maybe you should start doing some things. But it's that comparison thing where we're like, oh, well, I want to be where you are right now. I want to be further along. And I can't fault that. Like, I'm not absent of that. Like, I'm very hard on myself when it comes to that. And my friend he'll post something. It's this account, I think it's like this Black man wellness account. And it's something like, Black man, you need to be easy on yourself. And he'll post these things and I'll be like, is he talking to me?
I think my buddy reposts these in his stories too. And I'm just like, interesting. It is. And you never know. And that's, again, being open to those messages, even though it's not for you or if it is for you or however you want to frame it, take the message and be like, oh.
It's like, okay, I'll think about it.
So this has been awesome. I think it's important to have these conversations, not only as creatives, but I think anyone in general could be thinking and applying this, even if you're not a quote unquote creative. How are you showing up at work? How are you showing up in what you're doing in your life? Just be you and be yourself. But as the marketing branding guy, we are in February, Valentine's month.
Yes.
I'm on this crusade and mission of rebranding love. It's the message of live through love, and it's love over fear. It's like when we act from fear, we're reacting.
Yes.
And when we respond, we're choosing and leaning into love. And the main reasons why I say choose love, it's a choice, and you got to choose it day in and day out, day in and day out. Yeah. And we've trained the fear muscle that we don't realize we're choosing it. It's just happening. And I don't say that fear is a bad thing. Like, we need that for safety for a lot of reasons. I'm talking about the sense of like, you turn on the TV and think that that's truth. You think like, well, the world's falling apart. There isn't love in the world. But February is all about romantic love. The U.S. definition of love is it's a strong feeling of affection. I'm like, we know love is so much more than that. The Greeks have 6 different words for love, right? Like, so A, what's your definition of love? And B, like, what are your thoughts around how love is being used in marketing, especially in February? Because a lot of it is around either our lack of not being in a relationship or this is what you need to do for your relationship so that you can check the box and you're good.
I've been married for going on 9 years now,
Amazing.
and my partner and I, we've grown so much. My partner Caitlin, she's an entrepreneur as well. She's got a plant-based ice cream shop in Portland.
Ooh.
Kate's Ice Cream. And when we think about love, you used to think about love as this big like fairy tale thing, and like it's the movies say you're gonna be happily ever after, and you're never gonna have any problems or challenges or any lows. You're gonna get along all of the time, and it's just not a real thing. And my definition of love, quite honestly, is more around collaboration. It's how do we show up, and how do we have authentic dialogue about we're two people coming together to be one. How do we, one, maintain who we are from an identity standpoint, and also identify how strong and what we can be together? It requires, in my opinion, a robust amount of communication and being intentful about being communicative.
Yeah.
But also being, and sometimes that's not pretty, to be very honest in how you're feeling or where you are and how you can show up, and sometimes for us, it's like, hey, I'm going through this period right now where I know I said I want us to be equals in this relationship. I only think I can give 20% right now. And a lot of people might not go for that. Some people might walk because like, hey, no, you said you'd be 50-50. And it's like, my intent is to be 50-50. I'll be there. But on the flip side, she might come to me and she might say, hey, like I don't have capacity for that right now. Like, this is what's going on in like my personal world. These are the challenges that I'm dealing with. And so I think about love is like, it's not perfect. I had to learn, like, it's not this perfect thing. I had to learn that while no one's intentionally trying to hurt each other, sometimes people get hurt. Sometimes we hurt other people. And it's not because we're trying to do that, but it's a part of being human. And that love is a human thing. It shapes, it evolves, it changes. And it's it's a long-term thing. And it's bigger than being upset with someone for one little thing and it erodes a relationship. You got to figure out how to get past that and say, do I want this person to be a part of my life?
Yeah.
And what do I benefit from arguing with you about this thing for days and weeks and months? I have to be in it. I have to be present.
Yeah.
And so I've learned so much about love through also a practice of being present. Because I can't really say that I love someone and I'm practicing love and being a loving person if I'm not present. If I'm in the past on something.
Yeah.
If I'm like, well, you did this thing years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not letting it go. That's not love. You're stuck. You can't be present with who that person is right now because you're caught up in that. And that is very hard. It's a very human thing. We get caught up in these things. And don't get me wrong. I have moments where I have to be reminded of like, hey, like you realize you're holding on to a grudge here. You realize that you have to remember that person did this thing to you so you can hold on to this feeling to validate it.
Choosing that too. That's
Choosing
that
it.
choice.
It's a choice. It is a choice, right? So you could say, well, they did this to me. They didn't give me this interview opportunity. Or I know they were in a back room blocking this opportunity. Or you didn't wash the dishes today. You didn't take out the garbage today, and or you didn't say you love me today. And I've gotten past that too. I appreciate when someone says they love me. But for me, love is more dynamic than just those words.
Yeah.
It is actions. It's in what they care about. It's in how they take care of themselves. is a big one for me, right? You got to be able to also take care of yourself before you can really show up authentically for other people.
That's good to interrupt for a second. Giving and receiving love, it's really hard to receive it if you don't give it to yourself. It's also really hard to give it if you can't receive it back from someone else. So it's like it's constant refilling of your own cup and refilling of their cup. So it is that reciprocity there.
That push and pull.
And it starts, I always say it starts with self.
Yeah.
And we're here to love and be loved. And we can either be in I'm seeking love right now or I'm giving love right now. What mode are you in also? Check in what mode. Like right now, I want to give all my homies all the presents and all the love. Yeah. Right now, I want someone to hold me. You know? I think if we realize where we are in that as well, and I love that you brought up, I'm only 20% today or 90% or this, like, that's facts. Yeah. Throw kids into the mix. That's a whole nother ball game. It's not 50-50. And I think, I don't know where it says it has to be 50-50.
I don't know who thinks that's a realistic thing to every day be 50-50.
Yeah. But I think if anything, it's 100-100.
Yes.
You give 100% of your effort. And if that happens to be 10% today, it's 100% of 10%. And just be honest, like, yo, today I need you to take Remy a little bit more. I just like at a bet. I just don't have the energy. I don't want to put it on my kid. Can you please step up for me?
Yeah.
And vice versa. I feel like you're struggling. I can do a little. Let me step up some more.
Let me step up. No, it's like, but it's that honest, like, not holding this in, not trying to be prideful, not trying to be like, oh no, I could carry the world, because you're gonna break your shoulders.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're just gonna break down. And so many of us be walking around broken, trying to do all these things because we're too proud to say, hey, I don't have it, or I need help. And it's like, yo,
especially
I need help.
As men and men of color.
Yeah. It's like, what? It's like, you know, there was a joke. I don't know, maybe it was a Kevin Hart joke. And he was talking about like men will get hit by a bus before they tell somebody they're hurting. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, because the perception is like, if you're an emotional guy, you're weak, right? You know, how can you take care of anybody or anything or be successful if, you know, you're emotional, right? And I think when I think of some of my favorite male identifying people, I think about like a Michael Jordan and how like emotional Michael Jordan got on the court. He was clearly an emotional person. Or you think about like a Michael Johnson. And like this guy fell in an Olympic 200 meters, got up, finished, and won, and was emotional about it. It doesn't make sense. It's a fake thing. Like, you need the emotion. The emotion is your connection to your work.
It's a superpower.
It is a superpower. Like, you got to tap into that. Yeah. I don't know anybody that's created anything meaningful that wasn't tapped in emotionally. Yeah. It's the most human thing, you know?
We'll give you another example. You can go up on stage and yell all the F-offs and this and be pissed off, no problem, and just curse out the audience. Like, people could picture that and be like, yeah, I could do that. Now picture yourself up. Can you go up on stage and just start bawling? How much of your power holds back the fact that you're going to choke up and like bawl? But if you bawl, that entire audience is bawling.
Yeah. Because like,
where's the power?
You made it okay to be vulnerable, and it's something I struggle with, still struggle with, right? Because I, grew up with like the circumstances of my childhood. You know, my parents got divorced when I was 9, and there's a lot of crying then, but I feel like I'm a little out of touch with those things now. Yeah. You know, trying to tap into that emotion, it takes a lot. This is just a lot of walls built up, and you're like, yo, I kind of just want to like be connected to my genuine emotion. At the time, like, I get jealous because we'll be watching a movie and my wife will be up there crying, and I'm like, what you crying about? And she's like, this is the thing. I was like, you don't even know them. But I'd be like, damn, she really tapped in.
Don't watch This Is Us with my wife and I. Every time Randall cried, wife's like, I ain't crying, you crying. But I feel, and there's other times where I hold it in, and like my wife's sobbing, and I'm like, why am I spending so much energy holding it back?
Especially with your wife. What, she know who you are.
She ain't going nowhere. You know,
She knows
it
who
might
you are.
turn her on. Like, why are we holding it back? You know, why are we holding it back?
Yeah. It's a real one. You tell your man Jude Law on the holiday, he was boo-hooing Cameron Diaz. It's like, what's up, boo?
Yeah. No, for sure. So where are we getting it wrong in marketing and branding and commercializing it?
It's one-dimensional. We present love in a way that's one-dimensional. We show people that it's happily ever after so we can get this one sale. We leverage it against them so we can get this one sale. And then folks go out, they get these rings, they go get engagement rings, and they think like, after I find the one and we get married, everything's good. So then why is there a 50% divorce rate? Mm-hmm. Right? Because we haven't shown people that that's not love. That's a marketing moment. Mm-hmm. You know, it's love ain't flowers on the 14th. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Love is like, no, sometimes love is like, yo, what you want for breakfast? Or like,
and she craves something, you go get it. That's it.
It's like, you still asleep? Let me go get you a coffee. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But we it's just so one dimensional, and we're so underdeveloped when it comes to what actual love is. But when an industry has been created around it, and that industry has monetized it, then it's bought into that one definition, whereas the rest of us, unfortunately, some of us who aren't able to look beneath the surface and have that patience to learn that there's actually more here than this. But when you only have that, you can only end up as one thing. Yeah. You do what you see, right? We become what we observe and what is our environment. And so if you told me that love is perfect, and then I'm in a relationship that's not perfect, then I believe I'm not in love.
Mm-hmm. And here's a question. Who told you it is or isn't perfect? Why isn't your relationship perfect? Don't compare it.
Yeah.
Imperfectly perfect, perfectly imperfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
A loop.
Yeah.
And the other thing, just to go back one step, when we're saying like the I do and the this, it's marketed as the finish line.
Yes.
I do is the start.
Is the start.
Dating, friendship, meeting, that's warming up.
Yeah.
And I would actually even say, and I've been saying this, I do is actually you're warming up past the warm up. Like you just stretched, now you're mobilizing. Throw kids in and do the whole journey. Yeah. The finish line is when you die. It's not the I do, or else like I didn't get married to get divorced.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone has their struggles. Yeah. And we just got to lean in and work into it. And it's hard. And hopefully you have enough reserves to always keep fighting the fight.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's not the finish line.
That's literally how it's marketed. It's marketed as like, and that's
where the movie ends.
And that's marketing, right? Like marketing is we find the thing that is the thing that people care the most about, and we package it, and then we sell it to them, and they think that is the one solution, end all be all to all of the things. And we don't like, now we're starting to really be vocal about things like therapy and counseling and all of these things. But at the same time, those things historically in my community, the Black community, that's been under attack. Yeah. It's been under attack. It's like, you going to therapy? What you mean you going to therapy?
Oh yeah, I know. My family's like, that's for crazy people.
Yeah, what you doing?
Or why are you doing therapy? You don't have problems. I'm like, I don't want problems. We're trying to be proactive.
Yeah.
Like, you know, my wife and I did some at the beginning. We haven't done any lately. I'm like, we need to do some more. We have another kid coming. Like you throw in the kid, it changes all kinds of dynamics. So I think it's very important to have those conversations. And therapy doesn't have to be the definition of therapy. You can just talk to a mentor, a coach, a person. Just like, yo, can I talk to you? Just think about what therapy is. It's just really sharing to a safe person.
Yes. I just want to share what's here. Yeah. It might bring some clarity. You might have some insight. You might say, hey, have you thought about this? Are you looking at it this way? And to me, it's like, those are the things we need to get. And I'm happy like we're in a place where we're starting to get a bit more vocal about those things. And just so folks know, like, no one that's successful in anything, I don't care if it's love or entrepreneurship, it never had a finish line. The finish line was never starting an LLC. The finish line was never getting a client. The finish line is what you said when you're done. Yeah. You know, with this thing called love or relationships with, you know, you have a kid. Like we don't have kids yet, but I'm like, man, they're like little yous and they observe everything that you do. So all of your great things and all of your flaws, they're going to get them. They're going to observe, you know, because they're just observing them. And so it requires you to be like, oh, that's what I've been doing. Yeah. And you got to be patient. And then you got to start working on stuff. And then you got to realize like, oh, okay. So when they talk about unconditional.
And then if you bring up enough awareness, you're like, oh, I need to work on myself to be a good parent. It's not about what you do to parent. It's just, we embody it. They're going to do it. I got to embody this thing called live through love. That's how my son's going to learn to self-love and be this way. I can't tell him, hey, say thank you. You never say thank you, Dad. Oh, yeah, you're right. I should be doing it too.
It's observation. You can't tell someone to do something that you're not living yourself. Like and it's with like every relationship with our friends. Like we pick up on the things of the folks that we're around. And if our friends aren't doing those things, if our friends aren't treating their partners right, if our friends aren't tending their businesses right, themselves right, we likely aren't either.
Yeah.
You know,
everything's contagious. You hang out with divorced people, you end up divorced.
Yeah.
So, Bimma, this has been it was amazing. Have you? I don't know why this song, Joyner Lucas, the Bimma song. I love it, and I'm like, that's your theme song. I should have played it when you were coming in here. I love it. I just love it. I know it's about BMWs, but still, I love BMW too. I don't know why, and I'm glad I got that out. But final question.
Okay.
How do you define living a life through love?
Whew. For me, I would define it as freedom, but not freedom as a one-way thing. Freedom in all aspects. How I can have freedom, how I can help others have freedom. That's a love language for me, right? And so in my work, right? What's connected to that for me is even with this, what we're doing right now, right? I try to be very conscious about what am I sharing that could help someone else get free. To me, that's love. In my relationship, right? Does my partner feel like they have the freedom to be and do whomever they choose to be? It's an act of work, right? Because I'm a passionate person. I got what I want, but I also have to be receptive. Like, do they have what they want? Yeah. And what they need? Most importantly, their needs, right? And so I try to think of it that way. I think of it financially, right? I think about like in my friendships, you know, do we have that freedom to be and do who we choose to be? Am I not judging my friends for decisions that they made? So it's not the most succinct answer, but I think about it in those regards. And, you know, freedom is how I kind of like to define it.
No, I like that. And it's simple and it's true. And to add to the friend thing, not only judging or gossiping, but do I only hang out with my friends to get drunk and escape?
Yeah.
And who's going down to whose level or who's going up to whose level? And it's okay to outgrow people, and that frees them and you.
Yeah, because sometimes it's funny. I just interviewed Benny the Butcher, and he's got an album that says "Everybody Can't Go," and that's a
true.
part of it, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we do outgrow certain folks that we're in places with, but sometimes there are folks that grow with us, right? They grow and they evolve, and that's important too. And I think the other important thing that I should mention is just because you outgrow someone, it doesn't mean it's a negative thing.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
It just means like, hey, like maybe we've reached where we can go together at this point, and we independently need to go learn some things about ourselves. We independently need to go grow. And maybe, who knows? Maybe we might encounter each other in 5 years. And it might be like, wow, this feels really good. It's not based around maybe something in the past that we might have perceived as negative. It feels actually nourishing to both of us. So
that's choosing love in the moment. You do that from a loving space, loving yourself and loving that friend.
Yes, absolutely.
And if we realize that, it's a more powerful position.
Yeah, way better. Way better.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome, delightful. Where can the audience find you? Where can the community find you?
Oh, y'all can find me on Instagram. I love hanging out on Instagram at Bimma Williams. That's where I'll be. Shoot me a DM, holler at me on the broadcast station. And then you can catch me interviewing some folks on Bars and Nuggets on Amazon Music.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Live Through Love. If you love this episode, you'll love this episode.